My name's Alexander Burrell. I'm a clinical mental health counselor, aka therapist, and a life coach and a speaker with Evolving Lives Inc., which is a virtual mental health practice in southeastern Michigan. I was recently invited by the Novi Mental Health Alliance to speak at their local library about balancing video games with well-being to a group of parents who were concerned about their children. I had intended to record that presentation, but I left my SD card at home. And so here I am, re recording it for the people who were there as well as anyone on the internet. If you were able to attend that night, thank you so much. I'm glad you were there. I hope you enjoy being able to rewatch this. I will tell you that some of the content in this version is added on from what you saw. I decided to give a little more context to some things that I didn't get to fully cover or based on some of the questions that I was asked. If you weren't there, hi, welcome. And I hope that this is an informative experience for you. So let's get started. Balancing video game and well-being. So a bit more about me just to give some context. As a therapist, I tend to focus on why we do what we do. So there are plenty of ways to use therapy to solve very specific problems and strategize around do this, don't do this. And I think there's value in that, but I really like to explore the underlying reasons for our motivations. And I think that leads to more lasting change. And I think that will be a prominent theme as I go through the rest of the presentation. I also focus a lot on values and responsibility. So making sure that we're doing things that are important to us and that we're holding ourselves accountable for those choices. And as we talk about how children use video games, making sure they grow up understanding good priorities and how they're best using their time so that they can be proactive adults. And I've been doing more work with technology use. That includes video games, but also phones, computers. And so I love talking about tech with people. And so increasing part of our world. So it's never going to be any less important than it is now. Also, to say, I am a casual gamer myself. I have been playing video games since childhood. I've gamed on most of the Nintendo consoles, some on PlayStation, some on the computer. So I certainly understand where people who are struggling with this are coming from. Why do people attend the talk? Why are you watching this now? We want kids to be happy and thriving. And we talk about well being. So, in the psychological literature, they say it's positive physical health and positive mental health. For the purposes of this presentation, I think we can agree to say it's wanting people to be independent, efficacious, and socially connected. That's a pretty prominent three things we would all hope for anybody. And also, theoretically, if you're watching, you are concerned about video gaming habits, either because you're concerned for yourself, or you're concerned for a child in your home, or someone else in your life, or you're maybe not too concerned yet, but you're wondering, well, if I get to that point, what would I need to do? So I'll talk about the statistics, I'll talk about benefits, problems of gaming. I'm going to talk about needs quite a bit for most of the time. And if that doesn't make sense yet, I promise that it will. And also strategy. So I will give some tangibles for what parents can do. And the middle section and the end section, for those of you who were at the event, these are the parts where I'm going to elaborate the most beyond what you heard before. And then at the bottom, I will have a guide. Those dots will indicate how far in the presentation I am and go through it. So let's talk about the lives of gamers. Let's start with this. So particularly for parents, if you have children at home, do you know what games they play? Now, there's a good chance you do. You probably purchased them. Maybe you don't know everything that they're interested in. Or if you have older children who have a little bit of disposable income from their allowance or from a job, maybe you don't know what games they play. So it's worth thinking about that. When do you permit access to games? And that's going to be different based on whether they have a console, such as a Nintendo Switch or a PlayStation or an Xbox, or if they're gaming on a computer, where kids typically have far more access often if they have a computer for school. And also, do you know why they play? And I don't just mean it's fun or they enjoy it or it's entertaining. Those are all valid reasons. But I also think there are deeper reasons. We're going to talk about those. And are you familiar with what those might be for your child? Or if it's not for a child, or even if it is, what about you? Do you play video games? Have you ever played in the past or currently or last year? What were you playing? When? Why? And maybe having some insight about yourself will help you think a little differently about how the kids are playing. So I want to talk about a little bit of data to give everyone kind of a frame of reference. 85% of middle and high school students do play video games. So anyone you know in that age bracket, there's a really good chance that they're playing. Certainly, there are kids younger than middle school who play video games and play quite a bit. Now, 86% of parents are concerned that their children spend too much time video gaming. So, about just as much as they're doing it, their parents are worried. But, and this is the thing that I think surprises a lot of parents, 60% of those middle and high schoolers say it doesn't affect their mental health. And even 32% will tell you that it gives them some benefit. I tend to take that with a grain of salt. We're not always the best at assessing our own mental health and our own well being. That's not just kids that age. Everyone has struggles with that. But for what it's worth, there are 92% of these kids who really don't think that it's a problem. Ironically enough, 8%, you could say the remainder, may have a gaming disorder. A couple additional statistics I did want to point out. I get some questions sometimes about online bullying. I'll be honest, it is a problem. There's kind of a give and take here. So 72% of the teens say that they do go online to socialize, either with friends they already have or to make new friends. And 80% will tell you that bullying exists. That doesn't mean it's happened directly to them. It just does happen. And yes, hateful things can be said online, inappropriate things can be said online. I have not seen a substantial amount of data to say that these are life damaging things or that it's anything super heinous. It does happen. The really heinous stuff is going to be much rarer, but there will be instances of, you're not very good at this. You wrecked it for our team. And they can take that as some kind of bullying harassment. We want to emotionally fortify our kids against that. It's not the biggest concern. I want us to really focus in on how much time they're playing and whether that's appropriate, as opposed to a couple comments online that we can coach people through and have them understand, you know what, people say mean things. We're not all perfect at games all the time. What are the benefits that these kids claim to be experiencing? So I'm not going to go through and read all of these, but I'll point out a couple highlights. So certainly there's an element of relaxation. We get creativity. We get a sense of being good at something. Certainly that's part of winning naturally. Nobody plays video games to lose, though maybe we should build some sense of fortifies us against failure in our life outside of games. Emotionally, we can get a lot of distress tolerance. So when people say go to video games for escape or that it's a good kind of stress, you'll hear that sometimes too. It is. The intensity of getting that last battle in it can be healthy because it teaches your body how to deal with stress, but not in a way that's actually threatening to you. Executive functioning is a big deal. So this one gets a little divided. There are cases where someone's gaming too much and their attention span can get worse, or their ability to reason can get worse because they're not focusing so much maybe on academics, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But there are elements of spatial reasoning, hand-eye coordination, puzzle solving that you can get benefits from by playing some video games. It has to be the right kind usually. And then there's, of course, the social, and a lot of kids are going for those social relationships. Having said all that, I know that parents, if you're watching this, you're probably concerned. I know that there are problems. And the same deal, look through, see some if you think they resonate with your child. I'm not going to go through every single one, but sleep is a big deal. School performance is a big deal. If they're a little older and again, they have some of that disposable income, if they're putting money into the game in order to get new costumes or extra perks or more lives or something, it could start to be problematic. It starts a bad habit for later on. Relying on it for our emotional well being. So going to the game every time we experience discomfort can be unhealthy, doesn't learn us how to deal with stress and anxiety. And also, if we don't manage that video game time well, say we're playing a game, we're not very good at it, it can increase our sense of anxiety. Irritability and aggression, I'm going to come back to in just a second. I promise I didn't get to touch on that at the presentation that I did, but I do want to touch on it here. I think it's important. The biggest thing I want you to focus on in terms of problems is this preoccupation or loss of other interests. So the gaming is really a problem when it's all that they're thinking about. And they're not focused on the other things they should be doing. They're not focused on their schoolwork. They're not focused on maybe getting a summer job if they're old enough. They're just focused on their game and when can they get back to the game. And as much as some will go there for their social connection, some will also pull away. So you have people who are gaming alone in a room for time, and that's to avoid social connection. That's also. So, my point about aggression and violence. So we hear a lot of times, we've been hearing this for decades, violent video games leads to violent behavior in real life. There have been attempts to debunk this quite a few times. The research is very, very clear. Violent video gameplay does not lead to aggression or violence in the real world if you do not account for these two things. Already being inclined toward aggression and unsatisfying results. Some people just in their biology, because of different hormones or different kind of genetic proclivities, might have a greater inclination to be aggressive. Doesn't mean they are, doesn't mean they do anything aggressive. Just some people are natively that way. We teach them how to control it. If in addition, the game is not satisfying. So it's either not the right kind of game for them, which again I'll come back to, or they honestly are bad at it, so they don't get the joy of playing well. This could lead to increased aggression because they're already maybe a little more aggressive and they're getting frustrated. This is so much the case that the research has even said the violent gameplay doesn't matter. Just these two things alone will lead to increased aggression. How violent the gameplay is. I want to alleviate the concern if your child is generally well-mannered and has decent control of their emotions, you've never seen signs of aggression before, and they want to play, say, Call of Duty, it's fine. That you may not like that they play it, you may have different rules in your house, that's fine, you're free to make those rules. You may not like the amount of time they play, but the fact that they play a game where violence is affected is not inherently going to be a problem. So I hope that alleviates some concern if you. Okay. Now, if you remember nothing else from watching this, remember this line. Save it in the YouTube timestamp if you need to. Gameplay promotes well-being. That sense of being efficacious, independent, socially connected that I talked about. When it's used for fun. And when it is boosting an emotional need that's already present. I will talk more about what needs are in the next section. Basically, things we look for in life. If you get it elsewhere, it's just coming from the video game. This is positive. The game is positive, it's just adding to what's already happening for you. Your life's great. Video gameplay hinders well-being only when it's being used compulsively to compensate for that need. So you're not getting things you need emotionally elsewhere in life, so you have to keep going back to the game because it meets that need better than anything else over and over and over again. And you start to get that preoccupation. I have to play, I have to play, I have to play. And you or your child may not be able to articulate why, but it's because of that emotional need that's leading that urge to play. Research shows the number of hours that they play the video game is only predictive of worse well-being if the use is compulsive. So if it's coming from that urge, playing more and more and more leads to more and more problems, as we would expect. But if it's not coming from compulsion, if it's coming from a healthy place, all my emotional needs are met, I just enjoy this on the side, it doesn't matter if they play for 2 hours or 20 hours, they're fine. Yes, there certainly comes a point that if they're playing for 80 hours a week, 100 hours a week, they're not getting anything else done, and that's probably problematic. But if they're playing that much, it's a compulsion at that point. Or they just have really nothing going on, which we can fix too. So I keep referencing needs. We don't need video games. We all know it's not a necessity. There was a time before video games and humans were fine. What I mean is emotional needs. So I'm going to talk about 3 in particular. We're going to call these motivational needs. Another way to think of this is intrinsic motivation, motivation that comes entirely from within, not from the outside world, is based on these three things: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. So autonomy is our sense of volition. It is our choice to do things that are important to us as opposed to things that are not important to us. There's an element of feeling literally in control of our own life and free to make our own choices. With that requires a sense of safety. So this is a bit of kind of a stretched concept here, but if we don't feel safe, if we don't feel comfortable in our environment, we're not going to have that freedom to make our own choices and try the things we want to do if we feel like someone is impinging on us and making us unsafe. Competence is our sense of mastery or being efficacious at something. Having a goal, being able to work toward it and achieve that goal successfully. Self-esteem comes from this. And then there's relatedness, or you could say connectedness, or another way to think is empathy. So sometimes in the literature they will say the care of others and caring for others, or mutual care. You and other people are compassionate toward one another. There's also a sense of belonging, being part of a broader community. I always tell people when I bring on these needs, if you're familiar with other needs-based models in psychology, particularly what's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you've ever heard of it, it's the big pyramid, you'll recognize the bottom three terms: safety, belonging, and esteem, usually in that order, as part of that model. This is essentially the same. The concept translates. Almost all needs-based models have some version of these words. The reason that I use this one in particular, one, I think it's important to consider our intrinsic motivation, but two, research in the world of psychology and therapy, when it comes to technology, especially gaming, uses this model a lot. Uses autonomy, competence, and relatedness because it feels the most connected to what we're doing. So typically for people, when they think about why they pick up the computer or why they pick up the video game, they don't think, I need to feel safe right now. Now, emotionally, in your brain, that is kind of what's happening. But they think of it in terms of, I need to have control over something in my life, or I need to do something that I want to do, is kind of how we think of it generally. And so autonomy is just a better word for it. It doesn't mean that there's not a safety component. It's just easier to survey people with this terminology. And that's generally why it's used that way. I will keep using these terms for the rest of the presentation. So I was asked when I presented this in person, great question, I just hadn't factored it in the slides for time, about how this affects kids of different ages. So the youngest children are natively autonomy focused. Autonomy is the first of these needs that we as human beings learn how to navigate, learn how to need. So if you think about someone who's in pre-K, kindergarten, first grade, they're really curious. They want to go around, they want to touch things, they want to know if I pick up something, if I interact with it, changes. I have an impact on the world. I can do things. Doesn't mean necessarily they're good at whatever it is. It just means I am interfacing and have some level of control over and freedom over myself. As we get older, we get to a little more third, fourth grade. It becomes more important as kids realize, hey, I'm good at things. I'm good at some things, and I'm not as good at other things. I'm good at math. I'm good at English. I'm good at band. I'm good at soccer. I'm good at these things that I do, and that gives me a sense of competence. I can feel good that I have some skills that maybe my friends also have or don't have. And then as we get even older, when we get into high school, relatedness becomes more and more important. So it's not that relatedness or connection is not important there. Obviously, kids have friends from the earliest grades. They always have relationships with their parents, right? That's relatedness too. But what's commonly said is, when they get to middle school, high school, their friends are more important to them than their parents. They want to know what their friends think, not what their parents think. That's relatedness. That's their sense of needing to belong to something bigger than them, not just have a connection with a couple people. So that's important too. So they prioritize relatedness a little more than they did previously, not to say the other two become unimportant. So over time, also with gaming, and I'll touch on this later, you'll probably see your kids progress. The first games they pick up will be autonomy focused if they're young enough. Then they'll start to drift toward games that challenge them a little bit. And then they're going to want to get online and play with their friends more and more. Probably, in most cases. There are exceptions to everything. Our personal preferences can override this. So everyone, more or less, just has, you could say they're born with, how they were raised, whatever it may be, a preference for one of these three. Maybe two, usually it's mostly one, and then maybe a side need. So people who are autonomy focused tend to be what you might call lone wolves. People who are very independent, people who tend to isolate a bit more, though they tend to be very creative. I also note on here, as a therapist, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, if their mental health gets bad enough, they tend to be depressed, is what you would see. For competence, these are your perfectionists. I will say I presented this in Novi. I've also given talks in Northville. If you live in or have been here or know anything about Novi, Northville, Michigan, a lot of perfectionists. So we deal with this all the time, so I really try to highlight this for the parents. There's a native competitiveness to a lot of people who are in the competence category. That for kids, especially middle school, high school, you see a lot of I have to get into the best college. I have to get the best grades because they don't accept everyone. I want them to accept me. And you get intrapersonal anxiety. So that's internal anxiety. It's the I'm not good enough. I need to do more. I need to be better. Then you have relatedness. These are your followers. These are people who go with the flow, do what everyone else is doing because they want to be well liked. You could say people pleasers are in this category too. Their focus is on things that are cooperative, doing things with other people. And if the mental health is struggling enough, you get interpersonal anxiety, where they don't like me, they don't spend enough time with me, I feel disconnected from them. Okay. So I know I gave a lot of information, even more than I did before, about these different needs. I hope it gives context. It may still be unclear. I don't know what category my child fits in. Why does it matter which need they're looking for in this particular moment? Is my kid more of an autonomy kid? Are they a competence kid? And what does it have to do with video games? I totally understand. So I want to make an easy shorthand that I think is really going to help. So I have a couple different ways of looking at this. When it comes to gaming, autonomy is focused on escape. My life is too stressful. I don't feel like I have enough control. I'm constantly being told what to do by my parents and by my school and by my coaches and mentors. So I need a place where I can go do my own thing. So they look for escape. I'm going to go across and then I'll go down. Competence is about ego. So it's that feeling good, feeling I am successful, I am skilled. And relatedness is engagement. Typically engagement with other people. It could even just be engagement with a thing, something that's responsive to them. When gaming is very good at that too. So in terms of games, and thinking about the kinds of games that kids play, autonomy-focused people tend to play single-player games because they're independent. Autonomy people are independent people usually. And a lot of single-player games, because you're not interfacing with someone else, they give you more freedom. A lot of times there's maybe extra options to customize character, or they give you a big open world and they say just run off and explore. I'll give examples of those. So they like those kind of very freeing, open-ended experiences where it's really tailored to them. They can make it their own. In terms of kind of behavior types of gamers, you get a group called the completionists. These are people who want to do everything there is to do in a game. Try everything, touch everything, hit everything, because they want the full experience of it. And sometimes you'll even see they'll go online and they'll message with other people or they'll look up information about the game. And it is connection, but it's so I want to see what all there is to know about. And then I want to tell other people all the things I found about it. So they're connecting, but it's through this lens of the full experience. Competence, they tend to play competitive games where they can win and say that they're better than someone. Not to be aggressive, it feels good to be successful in that way. We get a group called trophy hunters. So certain platforms, I know PlayStation does it, Steam, which is on the computer, does it as well. They have something called trophies. If you finish a game, if you finish it well, if you get a especially high score, if you do something that's hard to do, they give you a little trophy. It'll be bronze, silver, gold, platinum for how successful you are at the game. And you can share this with your friends. You can show other people, look at how many trophies I have. And that's a big ego boost to be able to do that. And then relatedness is cooperative games. games where you play with someone else, either next to you on the couch, or you're connecting online and playing together. You'll also get a group out of this called moderators. So there's online gaming communities, websites like Twitch, Discord, sometimes on Reddit. People talk about games, have community discussion around games, live chat about games, and they need people to kind of, one, boost that conversation, get people talking, and also make sure that the content stays appropriate. People who want relatedness will tend to do this because they like connecting with other people, bringing other people together, a little bit monitoring, but to make sure that it's a safe space for everyone. That's part of being empathetic. So they'll fall in this category. So when you're thinking about your childhood gaming, you can think about maybe if you know kinds of games or what they talk about. Do they talk about their gaming friends? Do they talk about how many trophies they have, even if you didn't previously know what that means? This gives you a sense of what category they're trying to focus on. If you need even more examples, I am happy to help. So I'm going to go through each of these. I have some example games in every category. I really tried to pick one that are popular, that are well-selling, that, I have heard somewhat recently or seen online that kids 6 to 18 would engage in. So in the autonomy category, we get things like Kingdom Hearts, The Legend of Zelda. I'm even wearing a Zelda shirt, to be honest with you. I'm a fan. Skyrim, which is part of a bigger series called Elder Scrolls. These are autonomy-focused games. And we know this because they offer a good amount of customization. You can change your character, change weapons, make the experience your own in some way. And they tend to have big open areas you can run around in. The best example I can give anyone is the same one I gave on the original presentation night. There's a game, you can look it up, called The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. It came out in 2017. It's been very popular among young people. And the way it starts is you're on a cliff, you do a couple things, and then the game says, the end is over there, and there's a whole bunch of stuff in between. And it's total autonomy. The game is as long or as short as you want. You touch as many things as you want. You meet new friends and villages if you want, or you don't. It's that level of freedom. And people who are autonomy focused get a lot of experience. Even something, to stay in the same series, for people who are a little older, parents, grandparents, other caregivers who might have been around in the 80s, 90s, even the early Zelda games are this. They're very linear, but you do go wherever. There's dungeons. Pick one. Go in one, see if you can beat it. There's some Pokemon. So Pokemon tends to be very independent. It has been for a very long time. Go around the world, find some monsters, put them in a ball, throw them back out. But there's also a relatedness component. So before the internet, you could connect two systems together and trade with your friends. They also trade with the cards. That's not a video game, but same premise. Nowadays, we do it over the internet. So two people can connect, and they can say, hey, you have one of these, I need one of these. So you get a little bit of relatedness. It's still mostly an autonomy game, but you can have both. And then GeoGuessr, which is rather recent, for those who don't know, as I understand it, because I only played it once, I'm not very good at it, you get a picture of somewhere in the world, and you have to click on a big full world map and guess where it is. This can be competitive, so you can actually play against another person and see who gets closer. But there's a level of exploring different parts of the world, seeing what's out there, taking a guess how well you understand culture, if you will. That can be a huge autonomy boost for some people. Competitive games. We get Fall Guys, Hearthstone, which I admit is a little older, but it's apparently still popular. And Street Fighter. These are competitive. You play against another person and you win. Fighting games are a great example of this, not just because they're fighting, which sounds very competitive, but they are competitive. There's two people or it's a team of people, and you either win or you lose. Fortnite, hugely popular these days, 2026, Fortnite's the big thing. There's a last man standing mechanic, right? You want to get to the end and win. It's a solid goal. It's goal-driven, and you get a huge esteem boost if you're the one who makes it. There's also team play, so there is a relatedness component if you're doing the cooperative part of it. And then Forza is a racing series. So it's a race, so there's competition, there's competence in win race, but also it's these big, expansive racetrack maps. Look at a bunch of things, customize your car, I think. So there's an autonomy piece there, like I was talking about before. And then relatedness. The top 3 games, It Takes Two and Borderlands in particular, and about Portal 2, you have to play with another human being. It Takes Two is probably the best example of this, and there's more games coming out of this type, where it's only 2 people, they have to play together, and when one person does something, it lets the other person do something. If you don't do your thing, your friend can't do their thing. So it really forces very tight relatedness to play this. Animal Crossing is another good example. So I do some volunteering at an elementary school. I have heard about Animal Crossing a few times. Central premise for anyone who doesn't know: you get a village, or most recently an island. You build, you get a house, you plant some trees, you invite some cute animals to play on your island. That's it. And the big thing is you can invite your friends. So if your friend also plays the game, you can have them come over to your island or village, what have you, and stand there with you. And that's it. It's just about being there with others, either the cute animals that the computer makes for you, or your friends. But it's very relatedness focused. To give you a better sense of that, it was massively popular in 2020 during the COVID pandemic, because people needed to be connected. And then Splatoon, for those who don't know, it's like even younger kid Fortnite, basically, though older people do play it as well. It's even more team focused than Fortnite. So you could play it on your own, but you will be automatically connected with 3 people that you don't know, or you can get a team of 3 people you do know, but you will be playing with other people. It's still team against team, so there is a competence to winning. And lastly, the magical category. So there are games. There's an increasing number of games. And I spend time on this because I think all of these examples are important. Hopefully they resonate with you if you have played one of these or your child has. These games are immensely powerful because they meet all the emotional needs. So it doesn't matter who picks them up. They will probably find something that they like, and they're super appealing. The inclination to go back to them over and over and over is there because maybe today you need autonomy. Maybe that's normally what you need, say. But you're having a competence kind of day. Same game works. You've got your competitive itch taken care of, but now you want a little relatedness. Same game works. So Minecraft is the best example of this. There's a reason Minecraft is the best-selling game in the world. It is because it tackles 3 better than anything else. Though, admittedly, when I did the in-person version of the presentation, I was told by all the parents about Roblox, which I did not initially have on here, but fair point. Roblox also meets all of the needs. It's a lot of games within games, so you can certainly find something in there that you would like. World of Warcraft is a little older, but it was very successful at this. People put thousands and thousands of hours into Warcraft. This is why. Call of Duty even can do this. It's a little more competence-based, but it can be all 3. And even something like Super Mario 3D. So this Mario game in particular, I will highlight. Most Mario games are autonomy-based. That's why they're popular with younger kids, especially. So again, I will leave this up. Go back through timestamp if you want to look at specific examples. If you want to leave comments below the video of what about this game, what about this game, I don't know if you said this game is in this category, I don't think it is. I will try to answer as many comments as I can with that. Now, specific strategies, big reason why parents are going to watch this. I get that. Why not do anything else? You might wonder, reading can be enjoyable, painting can be enjoyable, sports can be enjoyable. But the thing is that most real-world, non-tech activities are limited. They're limited in how novel they are, how much variety they offer, the immediacy of feedback. You usually have to find a location where you can do whatever it is. If you want to do it with other people, you have to get them to agree to also go to this location. You might need equipment. You have to get all of that equipment, get it to the location if it's not already there. And after all of that, most activities meet 1, maybe 2 needs. And as technology gets better and better, and this certainly includes gaming, they're better at meeting more needs at once. They don't require all of this. You get a lot of novelty and immediate feedback and an infinite number of variety with thousands of games. And all you need, console, a copy of game engine. So it's really hard to fight this. So we have to change our relationship with technology, and including video games in particular. And sometimes that even means creating obstacles to using, because it's so accessible and it's so convenient. It's hard to resist just almost the simplicity of it. So I want to start giving guidance on how to do that. So I'm going to break this down. Say you have a psychological need. We're talking autonomy, relatedness, competence, right? And you're going to gaming. If the game fits the need, you get satisfaction. If you are a competent person and you play Street Fighter and you win, you get confidence. Hooray, great for you, great feeling for you. You want autonomy, you play Skyrim, great feeling for you. If you play a game that's a poor fit, you're not going to be satisfied. So if someone's looking for competence and they play Animal Crossing, they're not going to get a lot out of it because it's not going to give them competence. That's not what it's designed to do. The same problem happens if we as adults cut our children off from gaming and we say, you can't play anymore. Well, now you took the thing away. I was trying to get an emotional need met, and now I can't, and that's frustrating. So one of the things that I usually highlight this later, sometimes I say here, I would give offerings. So I would say, 30 more minutes, finish this level, then you have to quit. And they'll still resist. I understand that. They will still push back. They want to play more and more and more. I get it. But at least you're letting them squeeze out a little bit more of that emotional need before you take it instead of doing it suddenly, which feels like a greater attack on our nervous system. Now, if we're trying to shift to a non-gaming activity, the same rule apply. So if you have a competence-focused child and you tell them you're going to go to a book club and discuss the book with other people, that's not satisfying. That doesn't give them competence. They are not going to like that. If you give your child just chores to do, obligations, you're going to this because you have to, doing this because you have, or if you're just bored, it's not satisfying. If we want to pull them away from the game, we have to give them an alternative that meets the same emotional need as the one they're looking for. This is why I said before, we have to understand these emotional needs and figure out which ones our children are looking for, so that we can pick the right alternative to guide them away. Remember, if we get the emotional need met elsewhere, the game becomes just fun, not compulsion. What do we pick? So for autonomy, because they want so much freedom and control, chosen activities are best. Pick something that your child is natively interested in. Help them explore things they might be interested in. If they're one of those kids who say, I don't like anything, I don't do anything, no. Challenge them. Seriously, this does work. Challenge them. They have to pick something they like. It can start with something they just don't hate, or they feel lukewarm about. Or they've probably spent time with their friends before, or spent time with you before, or vacation as a family, that they moderately enjoyed. Use it as something they're choosing. They're saying, I have a positive opinion about this thing. Okay, is there an activity that is similar to that we can get you involved? Again, people in this category, they tend to be creative. So writing a short story, making music, painting, sculpting, these are all good activities. Usually, and it's a little bit like a fandom. So fandom is a weird example in that it can be gaming related again. But I'm talking about being part of a forum or going to an event like Comic-Con where you can connect with other people and maybe dress up and be really interested in kind of the details that are interesting to you about the thing. Autonomy kids love that. So even though it's still gaming related, they're not in front of the screen. They're actually kind of being impersonal, so you get a little bit of challenge with the benefit. They thrive in these environments usually. Environments where they feel safe and comfortable. Remember, safety is part of it too. Competence. Summary, it's things with goals. Things where you can do something You know what the end state is, and then you'll know, did you achieve it or did you not achieve it? So sports, hobbies, tangible projects are great. And then relatedness is put them near other people. Put them near other people so they can connect. Clubs are good. Group activity, any kind of group activity is good. Sports can be good because there's a team nature, but they also have to have a little bit of that desire for competence too. And family time, I can't stress how important family time is. Put the phones away at the dinner table. Play a board game. Go out and do something as a family. They're connecting with you. They want to connect with their parents. They want to connect with their siblings. They want to connect with their extended family. So, some specific strategies besides just shifting them to other activities. So I'm going to separate this both by the need and by the age, because I think the age becomes really relevant again at this point. So for younger kids with autonomy, you want to make schedules. So actually, there comes a point, especially with younger kids, that too much autonomy is a problem, and you need to take some of it away. And so having a very structured system, this is the number of hours you can play, these are the days that you can play, it tends to be helpful for them. Again, young, they'll follow your rules, have to, even if they fight you a little bit. As they get older, that strategy work as well. They'll fight back more. I have an alternative. We want to look at intentional use. So if they're picking up the game, what is it to do? Okay, you want to complete this section of the game today. Great. So you're going to play until you complete this section. Or if they have related as well and they want to play with their friends, great. You're playing to connect with your friends. You're not going to jump around and play 9 different games. You're not going to say, well, I have to do extra because I have to get extra points on. You said you were getting on to play with a friend. Let's just do that and then beat it. And for relatedness, you really want to focus on collaboration. Now, this goes for any parent. Regardless of age, regardless of need type, I would say play with your kids. Understand what they like about it. So one of the ways to understand the needs is to play with them a little bit, see what the game is like, see what they like about it, ask what they like about it. They can articulate just enough to say, oh, it's with my friend, or it's fun, or I like getting points. That's enough of an indication for you to know the category. That collaboration is healthy. If they're in the relatedness category, I would collaborate even more and see if you can play a game as a family. Play with them for a longer period of time. Common recommendation is last 5 minutes, jump in. Say, let me sit with you and see what you're doing for the last 5 minutes. But again, the more relatedness that they want, I even stretch it for longer. You as a parent do not have to be good at the game. You don't have to like it. You don't have to be good at it. It doesn't matter. In fact, a lot of the time, they will enjoy that you don't understand it and they get to explain it to you, or that you're not good. Classic example, someone said this to me when I presented initially, and I remembered this from my childhood. So when I was young, my parents would play video games with me at times, particularly my dad, and we would play Mario Kart. My father is horrible at Mario Kart. He would drive into a wall and then just keep driving into the wall, which I thought was hilarious. And if that happens in your household, I'm sure your kids will find it funny too. But I remember that now, decades later, because I felt connected to my dad. I mean, I got competence out of it too, because I got to win. But that relationship was important. And I think any parent who plays with their child might have a similar experience. Now, for older children, we do want to focus differently. We want to put the responsibility of the gaming back on them for the most part. So, with autonomy, we talk about values assessment. What is important to them? This is kind of related to the competence, which is what I'm calling a self-monitoring check-in. So making them accountable for their own use. My best example for both of these is, say you have a kid, again, older, so maybe high school, say, and they tell you what they want to be when they get older is a doctor. And you happen to know, because they mentioned it, that they have a biology test at the end of the week, and they're playing video games. You have a biology test. You're playing games. What would someone who wants to be a doctor be doing right now? They're smart enough to know that the answer is studying for the biology test. If they don't do well in biology, hurts the college chances, hurts being a doctor, right? They probably will not listen and change their behavior the first time you say this. It may take a few tries. But the point is putting the idea in their head so that they start to take responsibility and they say, oh, yeah, if this is really as important to me as I say, I can't do this. It's Thursday night, my test is tomorrow, I'm sitting here playing Minecraft, but I should be studying, or I'm going to ruin my chances. And that started getting even more competitive space too. But shifting that focus to them, not in a blaming or a shaming way, but just getting them introspective about their own behavior. Now, true for anyone, but especially for the relatedness, modeling. Modeling is they do what you do. If they're playing games too much, and it's probably to socialize with their friends if they're in this category, but you're sitting on your phone and you're texting your friend all night, or you're scrolling, or you're calling people, you've made it okay to use technology for hours and hours at a time. We have to set a good example. Teenagers in particular will point out if they feel that you're being a hypocrite. So we want to set a good example. I'm going to give even more tangible on some of these. For younger kids, token economy. This is great because it blends the scheduling with the intentional use with the collaboration. It's really simple. What's the problem? They spend too much time gaming. What do you want them to do? It could be anything. It could be get outside more. It could be join a club. We're going to say it's focused on their schoolwork and their grades. That's very important. So what you're going to do is keep track. So set a benchmark. Maybe it's assignments where you get an A, or even a B, whatever you're most satisfied with or what you're looking for. Depending on how they do, you give them points. Say 1 to 3 points. 1 point, they get a B. 2 if it's a little higher. If they get an A+, they get 3 points. Then, at a set time, I recommend Friday night through Sunday afternoon, they're allowed to then spend points. Say you can set your own system. My example, I think, is a good one. 1 point equals 5 minutes. If they have, for a couple weeks, they've accumulated 25 points, or I'd say 5 points. They turn in 5 points to you. You give them 25 minutes of game time. The easiest way to do this is if you have the device. So I will admit, I prefer, I say this, me personally, but also as a therapist, I prefer the console games. So a Switch, a DS, those are a little older, a PlayStation, a Steam Deck even would be okay, because that's all they do. It's a device just for gaming. So you as the parent can hold it and only give it when points are turned in. If it's on the computer, it's a little harder because I know a lot of the kids have to use the computer for their schoolwork. So it's harder to monitor that time. You have to develop the relationship and you have to monthly police it a little bit. And if you say you're going to check, you have to check. If you say you're going to come knock on their door after exactly 25 minutes and say you have to be done now, you have to be there at the 25th minute. Not the 24th, not the 26th, but the 25th to say you're done and I'm going to keep coming back and checking that you're done. I know that seems tedious and I know it's a little time consuming, but it's important to establish that rule if you need to, because the homework console is the game console in the computer space. Again, just to clarify, this is great because you're scheduling their time. They have to be intentional about their time because they only get so much of it, and you're collaborating with them to create this rule set. And teens will see through this. They will understand what you're doing. Put the onus on them. Ask them questions. And I alluded to this earlier. Prompt them. What is most important to you? Is gaming helping with that? That's kind of an autonomy phrasing. A more competence-based phrasing. Is playing the game the most effective use of your time? And then relatedness. Make it about the relationship and say, what do you think I, the parent, am going to say about what I'm seeing right now? And they're going to check that you're probably disappointed. They're not getting as much of the relatedness because now they feel you're upset at them, and it might start changing the behavior. I would also start nudging them. And again, this won't take effect immediately, but I think over time it certainly will. I've seen it with clients. What other activities are you open to exploring? Could you apply your interest in this to something more productive? Again, that's the more competence phrasing. Or do you want your whole social life to be embedded in the game? Hopefully they don't. As time goes on, we're going to live more and more of our lives on technology. I understand that, but the real world will always be there too. And helping remind them of that if they're relatedness focused, but too much in the games. So this is somewhat newer content again for people who attended the presentation. I hope this is helpful, and I hope it answers a couple questions that I was asked. So I'm not telling anyone how to pair. I want to be clear that that's not what I'm doing. But I'm trying to clarify some skills to focus on that's going to help individual categories. So for autonomy kids, we want to work on flexibility. We want to attend to their interests, their decisions, letting them make their own mistakes. I was talking to someone about natural consequences. So if you're really getting a lot of pushback establishing rules and schedules around gaming behavior, let them face some consequences, honestly. I know it seems a little harsh, but it can be very effective. If they're gaming on the computer and their homework is on the computer, take the computer. And they're going to say, well, I can't do my homework now. Yeah, but I told you to get off the game 3 times and you didn't listen to me, so now I have to take the game away from you, and if that means you don't do as well in your class, I don't know what to tell you. And hopefully your kid is conscientious enough about their grades that that feels important to them. Most assignments can be started on paper. I really believe this. If they have to write an essay, you can start handwriting it 5 minutes later. Typically, a lesson of that caliber of natural consequences, you only have to teach once or twice. I would not gravitate toward this at first. I would try the other strategies I've talked about before we get to this point. But if you need to use that method, you can. Competence. We want to focus on expectations. What do you expect of them? What does their school expect of them? Their teachers? What does the world expect of them? That will have a fair impact because they care so much about esteem and goals. For them, actually, structure and limits and rules are helpful. And I said before that that can help autonomy kids, but in a competence context, you're using it to say, stay in the lane of expectations. Making some parental decisions, particularly with younger, and then if they're older, give your rationale. If you say, I don't want you doing this, I don't want you getting on this site, I don't want you playing these type of games, explain why. Help them to understand that you're coming from a good place. You're coming from a place of positive parenting. You want them to be effective adults. And there's a lesson to be learned with this. And then for relatedness, it's all about support. It's all about being empathetic. Again, I'm just doubling down on family time, role modeling, and then creating age-appropriate opportunities for them to grow and experience what's out there. In all of these cases, so this is where I hope to answer a question that I got, which is, you want to give them the thing they need, but not be overly indulgent. So if your kid is turning to a category, say it's the autonomy games, because they need more autonomy, and that's going really well, actually. The game is meeting the need very effectively, they have autonomy elsewhere in their life, you're comfortable with the amount they're using game. Maybe it's an hour or two too much, but it's not bad. Then you can actually start employing the competence and relatedness parenting skills to stretch them a little bit, to challenge them to broaden it out, to be more interested in other people, to be more interested in goals. Because they're doing well on autonomy in a way that's not problematic. If they're going too far, if they're really immersing in 40 hours of autonomy-focused gameplay, then I would actually stay in the category so that the autonomy is coming from you and not from the game, so it shifts their focus. You want to start by meeting a need with the need that they want met, and then challenge them to the other ones. I hope that helps. I may, in the future, present more YouTube content, social media content about this idea of, because I get it can be complicated when's the right time to switch, and how do you know if they're meeting it right, about meeting the core need first that they want and then pushing beyond it. There's also an element just to say that you know your kid best. You know better than I will ever know what they need. And so if you feel they need more of the same or they need something different, give them that. And if it doesn't pan out, switch. There's 3 options. In a couple weeks, you can cycle through all 3. So I want to highlight a couple quick things. I've been talking for a while, and I don't want this video to be too long. But start with understanding. So what are they playing? Can you play with them? Again, I talked to you. Do you know why they play? And even challenging them, do they know why? I'm not saying that your child has to say the words autonomy, competence, relatedness, but getting at the concept. Focus on priorities. So I don't spend a lot of time on this when I'm getting specific into a topic like gaming or any specific niche topic, but as with anything, diet, sleep are massive for mental health. Assessing their feelings, is it still positive? If they're gaming because they like it, but they actually seem to feel worse after gaming, you can start questioning, is there bullying going on, for example? Or are they playing the wrong kinds of games and they're getting frustrated? So checking in with their emotions a little bit is healthy. Exploring other interests I got into. And activity without overwhelm. So this is part of overscheduling. We have a tendency, a lot of families in 2026 tend to be overscheduled, putting kids in too many activities. So they got school, and they got basketball, and they got student council, and band. It's too much. And then if they're coming home and gaming, they might now be going in the autonomy zone for that escape. But gaming is now another thing on top of all of it. Too much. So 1 or 2 things besides school, and then a little bit of gaming is probably a healthy balance. And then modeling, as I said before, set times, spaces, work for your own tech, be transparent on your own usage, set goals for yourself, say, hey, you spend too much time on your game, I spend too much time on the phone, let's both try to reduce that by an hour this week. Let's both be better this month, say. And I was asked, so I do want to point out, explain reasonable adult exceptions. Big examples work. So I said before, I recommend no phones at the dinner table. If you are expecting a work call, so you keep your phone at the table, that's fine. That's a reasonable adult exception. Tell them in advance. Tell them, hey, I'm going to keep my phone here because I'm expecting a call. If it's a friend, I'm not going to, trust me, I'm not going to take it. I promise it will be for work. And if they ask you later, hey, you picked up the phone, was that work? Please be honest and say it really was or wasn't, and hopefully you're setting a good example with this. The same thing goes with the computer use. If you have to be online on your phone or your computer, be it for work or maybe it's taxes, it is tax season at the time of recording this, for hours and hours at a time, set as, yes, I'm spending a lot of screen time today, it is for something important, just like how your child may be on the computer for hours one day because they have an essay due. We can share in exceptions if it's for certain things. Gaming is not an exception in this context. It has a set amount of time that you set as a family that it's permitted, as opposed to writing an essay. It might take an hour, it might take 3. I trust you're not going to tell them after hour 1, well, you're done writing. So a lot. All of this is things that I've already said. This is just a summary slide of all the different guidelines that I would recommend being attentive to. Do not try to tackle them all at one time. That's way too much. Each week, pick 1 or 2. Or even each month, pick 1 or 2 that you're going to focus on with your child. And that includes, so I have on here 1 hour screen time on school nights, 2 on weekends. That's a standard recommendation given by most practitioners, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists. If you want it to be different in your house, you want it to be less, that's totally fine. Also, this is the recommendation. The 1 hour, 2 hour is for middle and high school. For elementary school, for that is 30 minutes and 1 hour. So 30 minutes on school nights, 1 hour on weekends. Again, if you want a different paradigm in your home, absolutely monitor your home how you think is best. I'm just giving you a standard to consider based on the recommendations in the literature. Lastly, what do we spend time doing? So let's take a deep breath, let's re-regulate for me and for you, and really think about this. So in 1980, we had Pac-Man. And Pac-Man takes about an hour and a half to complete. Now, really longer, most people are not automatically really good man, we're just losing. But the whole game experience, it's an hour and a half of content. Super Mario 64 came out in 1996, and it has, at best, 20 hours. By the time we get to 2004, we're already talking World of Warcraft has 1,800 hours of content, but that has been slowly released over the past 22 years. Whereas Fortnite, so my last example here, is almost 500 hours of content, but it's only been around since 2017. It's 13 years later. So we're probably looking at this 1769 and saying that's a lot of hours. But imagine what Fortnite's going to be in another 13 years. It's a huge number. And I realize that's where parents are concerned, is how many hours are the kids spending playing games. And this might not all be in 1 year even, this could be across many, many years. Like, these things get updates over time. But there are many, many games, so, you're doing this number of hours across many different games. But what do we do as adults? So gardening, for example, takes 72 to 120 hours on reading to maintain a garden. Now, I live in Michigan. Most of the people I talk to are in Michigan, and it gets really cold. So it's not really 120, it's 72, if that, might be 50, and then it's too cold, your garden goes away. Sports, 10,000 hours to master a sport. Again, this is over many, many years that it takes to do this. So, okay, fair, and it's physical activity, that's healthy. The average U.S. adult spends 550-ish hours a year streaming. That's Netflix, Prime, Hulu, Disney+, ESPN, Plus now. I'm not a sports guy, evidently. Also, the average U.S. adult spends 2,500 hours a year doom scrolling. That's 7 hours a day on average scrolling on your phone. So when we look at that and we consider what we might be doing, is the Fortnite really that bad? Is the World of Warcraft really that bad? I'm not saying it's not a problem. What I'm saying is it's part of that model. We have to set a good example. If this is what we're doing, what are we showing our kids it's okay to do? Now, this data is from the U.S. Bureau of Labor for 2024. The average U.S. adult spends 29 hours in the year at home on their child's education. Now, I realize a lot of people who watch this are in the Novi, Northville area, maybe the Plymouth area. You guys are very proactive parents. I applaud you. It's probably more than that. But we're talking national across all cities. And some parents really don't spend as much time on the education. About 250 hours or less of non-sport-based play at home. Playing with kids is super important, especially when they're young. Physical care, fixing a boo-boo, making food. We're still talking under 500 hours. Total time just spent being with their children or doing something for them in the year, they're estimating it's about 880 hours. That's so much less than the gaming or the scrolling. And I encourage you, if we increase the amount of time we're spending with kids, teaching them, helping them grow, helping them mature, the other numbers go down together. If you're spending time with your child, your doom scrolling is going down and their gaming is going down. So get the engagement up, model good behavior, and that's going to fix a lot of the problems just on its own. Again, if you need a copy of the handout, please feel free to scan it. I will put the link in the description as well. This is kind of what it looked like. It has more words on it, but I was condensing for the slide to give you a summary of everything that I've talked about here. And I thank you so much for watching. Anyone who came, anyone who didn't come, thank you for being here. Thank you for checking out the channel. Please give us a like, follow, a comment on YouTube. Check out our social media. It's all under Evolving Lives Inc. or Evolving Lives Therapy. I will have the links in the description as well. And look forward to more content. I'm really excited to continue presenting and talking about gaming and general technology habits. I'll share more on that. We also do a lot of work as a company on leaders and business and anxiety and certain unconventional populations, right? My goodness, there are a lot of things that we can tackle. Trauma, grief, loss, life transition, which seems like a lot, but trust me, it all is part of this same kind of paradigm of being present for one another, being aware of our mental health, understanding our emotions, and I really would love to share more of that